You added primary keys. You ran a zorder optimize command. You spent 3 hours tweaking the SQL syntax inside a notebook, and your Databricks merge pipeline is still crawling along. Now your batch job is spilling over into the business day. Your cluster is running on 16 worker nodes, and your manager is asking why the cloud compute bill is doubling this month. Here's the truth you need to hear. You're trying to fix a storage architecture problem by rewriting your SQL statement. And that's a lie. You don't have a slow merge query. You have an unmanaged storage layer and a total failure of executor workload distribution. Today, we're skipping the vendor marketing slides and the happy path tutorials. I'm going to show you the 3 physical layers that actually fix your Delta Lake performance at scale. Let's get one thing straight right now. The Delta Lake engine does not care how elegantly you formatted your merge statement. When Databricks executes a merge operation, it does 3 physical tasks under the hood. It's pruning your partitions. It skips files using stats collected at the transaction log, and it assigns Parquet files to executors to perform the join. If your target table ends up being organized like a junk drawer, every executor has to scan every single file on object storage just to evaluate your on clause. Merge performance is won or lost at that storage layer, not in your query syntax. If your table design forces an executor to scan terabytes of irrelevant data, no matter how much PySpark trickery that you put in there, it's not going to save you. And doubling your worker nodes isn't a strategy either. It is a sure way to send your DBUs through the roof. The first tool that you need to deploy is liquid clustering. If you are still manually partitioning tables by date strings or relying on periodic zorder runs to manage your Delta tables, you are running on legacy understanding and patterns. zorder was fine 3 years ago. Liquid clustering is built for modern, high concurrency production workloads. Instead of hard partitioning your data into thousands of tiny file directories, liquid clustering adapts dynamically as data lands. The syntax is straightforward. When you create or modify your managed table, you define your cluster keys on the exact columns driving your merge conditions. So it looks something like this. You cluster by the join key and the predicate key. That gives Delta Lake the file skipping boundaries that it needs to prune 90% of the dataset before the compute nodes even start doing the join. If you want to understand how this fits into your broader architecture, go back and read my piece on the Medallion Masterclass over on Substack. Your silver is your governance boundary, and liquid clustering is how you enforce physical order at that boundary. Clustering cannot fix cowboy repo hygiene. In a recent architecture review, a team deployed liquid clustering, and their writes still were exploding. And why? An architect had quietly cloned a series of notebooks into a source folder without setting up proper repo standards. The production orchestration jobs were pointing at a 3-month-old notebook. A bronze stream of 80,000 rows was quietly duplicating batches into silver, ballooning the table to 200,000 records. You can cluster your tables all day long, but if your repo hygiene is trash, bad code will outrun good architecture every day of the week. While we're fixing bad assumptions, let's also bust one of the biggest myths in Databricks ecosystems. Primary key. Coming from traditional databases, data engineers assume that running an alter table statement to add a primary key creates an index that speeds up merge join. It does. In Databricks, declaring primary keys is purely aesthetic. It provides metadata for documentation downstream and catalog governance frameworks, but it creates 0 physical indexes on the disk, and it gives the Spark engine 0 performance gain during merge operations. Primary keys in Databricks are documentation, not performance engine. Now, let's tackle the silent killer of every enterprise pipeline. Data skew is something that happens when some specific key in your data set holds a disproportionate volume of rows compared to the rest. I was working through a production benchmark with one of my coaching students, and we were testing window operations on a table called fact-end. When we ran that window aggregation partitioned by a skewed test key, a single key held over 643 million rows out of the entire data. Spark was forced to route all 643 million records into a single task on one executor. That single task took 230.9 seconds to process. Then we ran the exact same window operation over invoice ID, high cardinality key that distributed the work evenly across all available executors. The execution time, 22.9 seconds. That is a 10x performance penalty on the exact same dataset purely because one executor was choking on skewed data while the rest were idle. On small staging environments, that looks like a minor delay. But when you scale that volume to enterprise level, that gap doesn't scale linearly. It scales on an exponential hockey stick curve. If you see 7 cluster nodes that are just idling and you have one CPU that's pinned at 100% for 20 minutes, then you don't have a compute capacity problem. You have a data skew problem. Now, how do you break that single heavy partition into equal work packages? Salting is the technique of appending a pseudo-random integer, a salt, to your join key to force Spark to break that massive partition into smaller, uniform chunks across multiple executors. Why it doesn't choke. Here is how you calculate your salt bucket count. So first, determine the average row count for your non-skewed keys, because you want to make everything. Second, take the row count of your skewed outlier and divide that outlier count by your average count. If your skewed key holds 100 million records and your average key holds 500,000 records, you need 200 salt buckets. If you append a random integer between 0 and 199 to that key during routing, it looks something like this. When you execute your merge statement, you update your join predicate to join on both the primary identifier and the salt count, and that looks like this. Now, instead of one executor struggling with 100 million records, Spark is going to distribute 200 subpartitions across your entire workgroup, each handling a clean 500,000 records. Your pipeline execution time drops from 45 minutes to under 2. Before you push another line of pipeline code to production, run this exact 4-step protocol. You're going to audit your storage layout. So you're going to convert unmanaged legacy tables to managed delta tables clustered by your primary merge join columns using ClusterBot. You're going to profile your executor balance. So you're going to check Spark UI task distribution metrics. And if a single task is taking 200 seconds while others take 20, then you need to locate that skewed key. You're going to apply calculated cell buckets. So you're going to calculate your ratio between your average key density and your skewed outlier. You're going to assign your salt buckets and update those join conditions. And finally, you're going to enforce version control hygiene. You're going to purge unmapped notebooks and lock down build artifacts using dabs so that old code stops injecting duplicate data into Silver. Notice what every one of those steps have in common in this protocol. None of them involve guessing, and every single one requires an engineer who understands production reality over tutorial. If your code does not solve a business problem or save compute money, it has no reason to exist. So you can keep tweaking your SQL syntax, adding fake primary keys, and praying your job's complete before executive dashboards refresh, or you can build production-grade storage architecture that survives real-world scale. If you are a mid-level or senior engineer stuck in what I call the 10-year junior trap, where you are repeating the same basic year of work over and over again without ever touching production standards, it's time to get out of your comfort zone. Be sure that you check out the Gamble Data Coaching Program. And if you are ready to start taking your pipelines to the next level and make them resilient, check out this playlist now.